1, prepare.
We're not prepared.
Check that off the list. 2, stay sober.
Not happening.
Welcome to the best kind of worst.
No one fucking cares.
Everyone cares.
Who?
I care.
Dick suck.
So there I am in the parking lot. Underwear and a guinea.
Hang out in the backseat of a 7-Eleven.
It's an animal!
We might die.
So you want to talk about those lesbians?
We need a Bay update.
I slept on the fucking tile!
Give me fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire.
Fuck yeah.
Oh god,
That's how you ring in the fucking holiday season.
Yeah, well, I had to think of something to bring us in for our guest today,
Hell yeah.
and he's always talking about Metallica.
What's up, guys?
So, what's this, episode 26?
26.
26. We got my buddy David on. David Melendez.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man.
Both of you. Thanks for, really appreciate you guys having me on.
Anytime. Open door policy.
Yeah, for sure.
It's
Thanks
like
for coming on.
It's like a brothel, only it's free. And you're not getting any kind of sexual favors.
I mean, let's not throw it out the window just yet.
I left it open. I wasn't. You heard it in my voice. I wasn't firm. I was just throwing it out there. No. But maybe.
But maybe.
All
No,
right.
but maybe.
What's going on?
Oh, not much. Not much. How was your week?
Uneventful. Well, I guess it was a kind of eventful.
It was pretty eventful,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
I had Ing in town.
Yeah, yeah.
She departed on Thursday. I pulled my fucking back out.
Because you're old?
I don't want to talk about it. I literally, you called me at like 4:47.
Yeah.
You're like, you want to go to the gym? And it was Tuesday morning.
Yeah, Tuesday
And
morning.
I was like,
yeah.
and you had Matt in town. I was like, let's just take a day off.
Yeah.
I sit up because Sister Bay heard me, and she was like, "Oh, if you're up, let's go pee." And I sat up, and my whole back lit up, and I immediately went right back down. And I've been nearly wheelchair bound for 5 days. There's a bruise. There's busted blood vessels. I don't know what the
All
fuck
from
I did.
sitting up in bed.
From sitting up. Fast forward 6 hours later, think I pissed out a kidney stone. Honestly, that if that's not the universe telling me, hey, you gonna skip another day at the
You're
gym?
old.
No, it's telling you. This is what happens when you skip a day at the gym. Don't let it happen again.
I guess.
And that was essentially the whole
That was the rest of the week was your back.
was my back, studying, taking Ing around town a little bit.
Yep.
Her friend was in town, so she saw her for a day.
Yeah.
And she rode off into the sunset on Thursday night.
Nice. Good.
Yep. Shit doesn't get easier.
Oh,
You know?
sure. Well, yeah, when you're
Yeah.
long distance relationship.
Shit doesn't get any easier. They're lying to you if they tell you it gets easier. It doesn't. But my one relationship advice that I always say is if it's worth it, make it work, and that's it.
You're damn right.
I don't have any.
You're damn right.
You're damn right.
You're damn right.
I'm not worth any other advice. Yeah.
Awesome.
You? What was your week?
Pretty easy week. Just had Matt in town, so it was just a lot of eating and drinking. Did a little bit of work, made some money this week, but
now speaking of eating and drinking, you ate a 2-pound steak one night.
just shy of 2 pounds. Now that was a bone-in ribeye, but yeah, we grilled up a couple steaks, and they were both about 1 3/4 pounds, but they had a bone, so it was probably a little over a pound of actual meat.
You're still getting a solid 16 in you.
Yeah, easy. Yeah. Plus, we had some bacon wrapped scallops as an appetizer.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, we went all out. It was a good time. Did a
Trying
lot
to
of grilling.
Trying to get that carnivore diet, son.
Yeah. Maybe, but not really.
Not really.
But yeah, it was good. It was good. Just nothing crazy eventful. Hit a bunch of breweries. Went to the Dolly Museum. Did a bunch of grilling. Pretty good week.
It's good.
Yeah. But anyway, so we got David on. Now, how we want to break into this?
Director, cinema. What kind of what do we call you? Director, cinematographer?
No, I'm not a cinematographer. I think I would offend Ryan if I would call myself a cinematographer. I'm a independent filmmaker here in Florida, and just making movies, hanging out, chilling.
Hanging out, chilling.
Just trying to make movies. So I'm glad you guys had me on. I just finished up a movie that got into a film festival here, and just wanted to talk about it a little bit with you guys and see how it goes. Ryan worked on it as well. He was a cinematographer on the movie.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
Mr. Impressive over here, multitasking. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you just got done telling me essentially what you did, and I still, it's just I'm a novice on it, so I don't know a whole lot. So yeah, it's
Yeah, he'd
mostly
be the writer, director, producer type.
Yeah, there's a lot of I guess moving parts to making a movie. So there's a lot of different positions and roles, and I'm most people know what directing, writing, producing is usually. Kind of right. Especially directing and writing. But then there, when people hear DP or director of photography, they don't really know what the responsibilities are, and so it's becomes a very interesting conversation as far as people's responsibilities and what they have to do to make a movie. All the way, it just trickles down to so many different positions and what people do. So
yeah, and the bigger the budgets you get, the bigger the crews and the more people and more responsibilities.
Right.
Now, do you want to give a kind of a synopsis of the movie? That way,
Yeah, sure. So I wrote a movie with a very good friend of mine that Ryan knows as well, named Robert Manrique. We had been talking about doing an anthology because just sometime at the end of last year, there was a distributor that had picked up 5 of our previous short films. And they bundled it together, and they kicked it back, and they said, hey, come up with a name for an anthology. So it's just kind of something that was kind of rushed together to get out there. And after that, I said, well, why don't we do an anthology that we actually plan to do? And so I had decided to do one based on true crime because I do enjoy reading about true crime. I know it's unfortunate events, of course, but I think a lot of people are interested in true crime. I mean, you go to the library, to a bookstore, or on Amazon, and you see a whole category on just true crime. So I wanted to do an anthology on it. So working with Rob in the past, he's an excellent writer. So we collaborated, and he had asked me if I knew about a case that was, that's arguably America's first school shooting that happened in 1979. And I said I did. And so we just put our heads together and started doing some research. And he had written a first draft, and we just started kicking the draft of the screenplay back and forth all the way up until we decided to go into production and put a team together and cast it and shoot it. And we just wrapped up, I don't know, I think it was back in October. And we had submitted it to quite a few film festivals. And the first one that we had submitted to, which is called the Tampa Bay Underground Film Festival, accepted it. And we're having our world premiere on December 8th. Here in Tampa.
Yeah, next week from today.
A week from today, yeah. And just to kind of tell you something about it, I mean, the movie's titled Cleveland. It's based on a true crime, actually based on the this girl, this young 16-year-old girl named Brenda Spencer, who had fired at a elementary school, and I just kind of leave it like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a film short, so it's 15 minutes, and like I said, it's a tragic event that happened, and it's kind of be our introduction to our anthology, which is going to be called American Tragedy, which is going to be an anthology of true crime. So, and that's going to be the one that's going to kick it off. So,
Yeah, I got the privilege just to watch it, an early edition of it, and it was great.
thank you.
Now, a film short is 15 minutes that normal? Is that the normal length, or is there like an unwritten rule on length of the movie?
That's a great question. A movie could be.
You're good.
We're good.
Yeah. I was just checking something.
Saving battery.
A movie could be as long as you want it to be. So, I mean, there's movies, you can make a movie that's a second long. You know, there are in the business, I guess you can say, there are some standards. Usually standards of runtime is based on marketing and how stuff gets distributed. Because let's just face it, you know, if you're going to make a 6-hour movie, good luck getting people.
Yeah.
Unless you're like Scorsese, you can make a 3-4 hour movie, you get engaged in, obviously.
Everybody will watch it.
But usually, you know, for short films, if you stay within the 15-minute range, it's a pretty good range, 10 to 15 minutes. That's a good spot to get into film festivals because it doesn't take up a lot of time. Because film festivals play hundreds of movies, so you know, the shorter they are, the more they can squeeze into their time blocks. And on feature films, usually they run 90 minutes to 2 hours. Again, just depending on the genre. I mean, we could spend an hour talking about length of movies.
Yeah.
Usually, like horror films they'll run safe like 80 to 90 minutes, and then you get dramas that run 2 hours, sometimes a little over 2 hours. So it's just dependent on the genre and the subject matter. And you know, if you get the movie out there, you know, if you have a good producer, they'll advise you early on, just based on how long your screenplay is are you going to be able to keep your audience engaged long enough? You know, do we really need to make this movie 2 hours? So they'll cut it down to 90 minutes. In this particular case, the script was, I think the script was 10 pages.
10 pages, yeah.
Yeah. And it became 15 minutes because we had drawn out.
There's pacing for beats and you know, pauses for, you know, making sure the feeling and the mood is coming across the way you want it to.
Yeah, because you had told me previously, basically one page of script equates to roughly 1 minute.
Yes, that's your standard key. 1 page is 1 minute. But depending on how much dialogue versus action there is on that page, and again, pacing of the movie, whereas like an action movie is going to go by a lot quicker, whereas this is more of a drama, so things are a little more paced out. So you actually, you know, we actually extended the movie by about five minutes from what you would think it would have been about, you know, just looking at the script.
And to the Scorsese comment, I think we talked about this a few weeks ago. I think movies are getting longer. I see a lot because I remember as a kid, if you hit 2 hours, that was a long movie. And I feel like every movie I see now is 2 hours.
Or pretty damn close.
You know, I think every Marvel film now is standard is 2.5 hours almost. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, and I can only imagine how long, like, the first early drafts of these screenplays are probably a lot massive. I mean, you know, movies like that, like these comic book movies, they're so enriched with so many characters, so much background. So I'm sure these teams, they sit and they kind of duke out as far as what's going to stay and what's going to get cut out, because you have so much background and so many characters in one story. How much are you going to cover? And then when you start making sequels on it, you know, there's just so much to cover. So I mean, we've seen I think these superhero movies are like 2.5 hours sometimes.
2
hours and 20 minutes.
I think the standard now is like 2 hours, 2:20.
Yeah, but there from 2 to 2.5, and you got to assume they've got probably quite a handful of scenes that have probably been cut out. You know, so you got to figure it's probably over at least a 200-page script.
And they always do the mid-credit and then the end-credit scenes to give you teasers for future movies. So you're forced to sit. I mean, not forced, but I mean,
but most people
you're not going to get up.
Yeah,
you get those two idiots that
you
get up
already
every
have
time,
a
but-
built-in audience for movies like that, so they could get away with it. And plus, people are so engaged in it and so into it that those 2 hours, 2.5 hours, they just go by and they know what to expect.
Well, the thing too is they're just shoving action in your face most of the time. So when you have that, it tends to go by fairly quick. Whereas when you have a 2 to 3 hour dialogue movie, you tend to feel it a little bit more on how long you're sitting there.
I'd
Yeah,
much rather
absolutely.
see a 2.5 hour drama than a Marvel
Oh, me
movie, just
too.
because I feel like it's an algebraic equation: A plus B equals C. You know, we're gonna lose in the beginning. Well, we'll win in the beginning, lose the middle, and then come out in the end.
You know,
With
you
the exception,
pretty much know what's going to happen.
With the exception of the last one.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like when you had, earlier we were talking about, well, just briefly on directing and producing, right? A good producer can figure out. I mean, usually producers are going to look at, what's the more asses you can put in seats. I mean, that's what they're going to go for.
what
I mean,
it is.
you have creative producers and you have business producers, and you have distributors and then you have studios. So there's so many factors that come into play that if you try to pitch a 2.5 hour drama, it better be damn good,
Yeah.
and it better keep people. And if it's just going to keep 1 out of 10 people engaged, then they're probably just going to pass
not worth
on
it.
it. So
Yeah.
that's what makes it so difficult. So when you have, that's why these days you have so many remakes and superhero movies. You already have a built-in audience for it that people are going to go regardless, so they can get away with a lot of that. And like what Ryan was saying, that there's a lot of action sequences and a lot of cool stuff, so people are just going to stay and watch it.
Keeps you entertained, even if it's not necessarily the greatest story in the world. They throw a lot of fast action in your face to keep you entertained at least.
So the runtime for Cleveland was right at about 15 minutes, a little
Right
over
around
15.
there.
Right around 50. right.
How long does that take to shoot?
Well, we shot, it was 3 shooting days for this movie. So we shot one day for the opening sequence of the movie, and then the rest of the movie was 2 days for it.
And you shot it here locally?
Yeah, we shot it in Tampa. So we shot it, one in Tampa, and the other one was in, I think it was, where was it?
Is it Dunedin or just past?
No,
Dunedin?
it was Pinellas County, but I
Yeah.
don't remember.
I don't remember the
no, I
town.
think it was Lakeland. No, it wasn't.
No, not
My
Lakeland.
bad. Yeah, I think I had to hire a Lakeland police officer for the.
Lakeland, was it?
I think so.
We weren't up there.
Yeah, no, we were in Pinellas though, but I think the jurisdiction was.
Interesting.
Oh, I could be. Yeah, I could be totally off.
Damn county
Yeah, I don't
lines.
think Lakeland's right, but yeah, it was.
Lakeland would be like Pasco Polk, right?
Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
totally off
It's
on
probably
it. Yeah.
actually I got it right here. I think. Of course, it's not going to tell me the city. It's just telling me the longitude, latitude. Maybe Pinellas Park.
P Park.
Was it in?
Yeah, I'm just trying to. I don't know why I kept thinking Lakeland. I'm just trying to visualize. I just
Because it was
remember
at the lake park there.
Oh, that's
It's in
right.
Largo.
Yeah,
It was in
Largo. That's
Largo.
what it was.
Yeah,
My
it was in
bad. Not
Largo.
Lakeland. Yeah, totally off. So much I know.
Yeah, Lakeland's the other way. So I'm like, it wasn't Lakeland. We didn't go out there.
No, yeah,
That's not
Largo.
quite
Definitely
local.
Largo. My bad.
Yeah, it was
And-
Largo.
And
Yeah.
do you have to petition like the county or the city to allow you to shoot in some of these areas? Are you renting some of these places out?
Well, it's these things they're independent movies, so you try to save as much money as you can. So in this particular case, free is always good. So free locations and stuff. So if you're gonna shoot somewhere that's owned by the city or the county, you could technically you don't have to pay for it. I mean, your tax dollars pay for that. The only thing you do have to provide is insurance. So if anybody gets hurt, it's just basically you can't sue the city.
And you have to pull permits.
And you got
and
that's why you got to pull a permit for it. So in this case, we shot one day. We shot in Largo was at the and I forgot the name of the park. It was
Eagle Lake Park.
Eagle Lake Park. They have a big mansion out there. It's
It's like an old farmhouse,
Yeah.
like an old farm mansion.
yeah. So we shot there. Obviously, we had to draw a permit for it, which was
Hassle.
that was the biggest. Yeah, that was the biggest challenge I've ever had to pull a permit. And there was just a lot of factors behind it on the location. So we did get a permit for it. We didn't have to pay for it, obviously. And then the other days we shot in Tampa, and a friend of ours, was nice enough to lend us her business, where they actually sell, I think, windshields.
Auto glass, yeah.
Okay.
Auto glass, yeah. So
And for that, it's a bit easier because it's a private type establishment. As long as you get permission, you can shoot.
Yeah. So she let us use the place. So we shot there for 2 days on a weekend, on Saturday and Sunday.
Now, in terms of funding, since it's a private film, are you getting funding, or are you all funding this yourself?
No, I funded it myself. Actually, that's the. There's pros and cons to independent filmmaking. I mean, one of the pros is that you have all the creative freedom that you have.
Yep.
But one of the cons is you got to pay for it. So there's not a whole lot of budget. So there's stuff you got to pay for, like food for crew, for cast and crew, and sometimes there's props. So it just depends on what it is. I mean, obviously you plan it out before you go out and shoot. In this particular case, it is a period piece, which that can get expensive. But I stayed away from a lot of stuff. So, but there was some props that were from the 70s. So that we kind of sprinkled.
Luckily, it was only the 70s, so the clothing wasn't like a huge big deal. It's not like a period piece where we have to go and find these extravagant outfits or something.
Right.
But there were some props, specific type props that we had to find to kind of match that era. And of course, that costs money.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not cheap. So I mean, I mean, I'll give you an example. I mean, there's a scene in the movie where the girl she's in her house, and this tragic incident where her she had already fired her weapon, and a reporter calls her house, and she picks up the phone. She talks to him. That telephone, since it's going to be in the shot, pretty close, so you want to get something as accurate as possible. So you go online, your eBay and Amazon is your best friend. You go on eBay, you find a telephone from the 1970s that, most kids these days don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, she can't pick up a digital
she can't pick up a
LCD
cordless
phone. Yeah.
And the damn phone ends up costing more than when you get an iPhone today. So it's like, then for them to ship it, stuff like that. But that's just part of the that's just part of the movie making process. And there's wardrobe and stuff like that. So you just try to get stuff as much as possible from friends and family, or from connections that you have.
From the talent, if they have, like wardrobe that'll fit the scene.
Yeah, exactly.
That
You
always
just kind of
helps.
reach out to everybody. And
Reach out to Sister Vintage.
Yeah, that is a good idea to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Next time if we need clothing, she has like a vintage type clothing shop going on right now.
Oh,
so
nice.
Definitely something that we can utilize.
And if
in
you're
the-
looking for
in the
something
future.
specific, she's usually
She can find
she
something.
knows. She knows.
She goes to all these like flea market type events and clothing events to, sell this like vintage type clothing. So
That's cool.
She knows I was trying to think of the right word to say. She knows the outlets to like procure these things.
she knows the outlets. She knows other people doing it. So definitely something that we can keep in our back pocket for next time.
I know Ryan and I have spent an afternoon at the flea market.
Yeah.
Walking around trying to find stuff.
Is that where
we
you ran
saw
into
her
her?
there.
Oh, that's her?
Yeah,
Okay.
we saw her
All
there,
right.
remember?
All right, yeah. Okay, I remember now.
Yep. She just
Yeah.
didn't have anything that we needed for that piece.
That's right, yeah.
But
Yeah.
well, that's actually where we saw her.
Yeah, because she texted me that day. She's like, I just ran into Matt.
Yeah.
Oli.
She calls me Matt.
She calls you.
Yeah. Not really sure why. But
It's not even close.
because I look like a Matt, I think she told me. I'm like,
No,
okay,
I'm
I
gonna
guess
call you
whatever
Matt.
that
What the
means.
fuck? What does that
What
even
does that even
mean?
mean? I don't know. Funny though.
Now, you said you drew inspiration because you enjoyed crime dramas and kind of those real life portrayals.
Yeah.
I mean, to your credit, there's a reason why Law and Order is still around.
Right.
What is it?
People love it.
28 seasons.
Yeah, and there's spin-offs on it and
Yeah.
everything.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, there was actually a Law and Order one that they just did like maybe like 2 months ago about the Melendez
the Melendez,
brothers.
the one case, right?
Yep.
Yeah, the whole thing was like
Yeah.
a miniseries based
Yeah.
just on that case. So I think, it's one thing that I know that, before we went into this, one of my biggest worries was like, I just don't want to come off as a person that's trying to glorify these crimes or glorify these people that are doing them. I think, audiences find it interesting as to why we watch so many documentaries. You can go on Netflix and search serial killers and true crime stories and
How to Make a Murderer.
How to Make a Murderer is another one. Great show. Mindhunter's another one. Yeah,
The Mindhunter's fantastic.
yeah.
The OJ trial that
Yeah.
showed that
The People versus
the People
O.J.
versus
Simpson.
O.J.
That's actually
Simpson.
that was made by the guys who did American Horror Story.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
did American Crime
Ryan-
Story.
Ryan Murphy.
Yep.
Yep.
They did American Crime Stories.
great.
I think there's something to taking that one case, and instead of Law and Order, usually it's every episode.
Every episode.
I like for me, the first show I noticed that did that was The Killing. Back about 6 or 7 years ago,
Yeah, I never did watch that.
It really never got traction. Ended up getting canceled after
I heard
the
it was
third
good.
season.
I never watched it.
It was lovely, and it was one case, and it went nearly 2 seasons. And 2 episodes in, you think it's this person, then 3 more episodes go by. It was great, and I think there's something to that, where it's instead of just wrapping it up in 1 hour, 44 minutes.
Yeah.
Really taking you down the path.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, they got there's so much content out there where you can do or that you can watch. Sometimes I'll just get so hooked on it. I know Netflix did one. I don't know if it was them that produced it, and there's one called I Am a Killer, where they just basically interviewed. There's 10 episodes, and each episode they just interview a person that has done some huge violent crime.
Yeah, I have it in my list. I haven't watched
It's great.
it, but I think it is a Netflix
I mean, again,
original.
I say it's great. I mean, it's it's obviously
great to watch.
it's all set up for entertainment. But again, like I was so adamant about, let's not try to make it look like we are.
It's not glorified.
That we're not glorifying it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think it's just interesting seeing. I think most people that enjoy watching it, like myself, is we try to watch, like, you hear or you read about some crazy crime that someone did, and then they're just sitting in front of them, and they're sitting in front of you on your TV, and they're just kind of talking to you about what they had for breakfast, what made them angry that
Seem
day.
like a normal person.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the fascinations right there, and I think ever since one of the most famous killers was Jack the Ripper. Ever since then, I think that's what kind of started it off, and even to this day, they still talk about Jack the Ripper and all these killers and all kinds of all different stuff. Everything from not just violent crime, but even embezzlement stories and people who do white collar crimes. I mean, there's a ton of documentaries out there.
Yeah.
Well, why do we watch it? It's just I think we just find it interesting, especially myself. Just find it so interesting how people get away with stuff, or how do they get caught. I think that's the fascination of it. So that's what inspired me to kind of go in there. And there's also something about it being, a true story. I think people watch something that's a true story. It makes it more interesting because it happened. And I mean, obviously some of it's dramatized. I mean, it has to be for a movie, but I think that also intrigues people to want to watch as well.
Yeah. No, I wholeheartedly agree. I lost so much train of thought.
Oh, it's all good.
Oh, my knee was killing me. I lost so much train of thought.
And I know one thing that you had mentioned to me quite a few times in the process of making the movie is you also didn't want to make a stance with it.
Yeah, that was a big deal for me. I didn't want to make a couple of the early drafts of the movie. There was, let me see if I can sum it up this way. There's no opinion. I don't portray opinion on it as to why people think why this young girl picked up a rifle one day and decided to fire at an elementary school across the street. The only reason she gave was that she didn't like Mondays. And, obviously back when it took place in 79, it had a lot of media coverage, obviously. And there's always going to be opinion from the media. So I just didn't want to make this movie why I thought she did it, or reading media coverage and interpreting or taking their interpretation and putting it in the movie as to why she did it. I just wanted to keep it as universal as possible so that when people watch it, they can make up their own decision, or at least strike up the conversation as to, why did she do this? Or, they'll probably end up looking it up after the movie and reading the case on their own. So I figure it's already, the information's out there. Once you find it, there's
You
no
want to
reason
stay
for me.
neutral.
I didn't up until seeing it. I didn't know it was related or based on a true story. But yeah, there's something to that fine line, especially since it is a school shooting, and it's such a polarizing topic today. There is that fine line where you don't want to glorify it. You just want to be factual. Mm-hmm. Like this is as close as we can give it, based on what's known out there, and I think you achieved that wonderfully.
Thank you.
Yeah, and there are a lot of facts in there, but obviously, like you said, there's dramatization, and a lot of it is also just what you kind of think how it could have panned out.
Exactly.
You know?
We got to fill in the blanks so that the average person will watch it.
We don't
You're not
have
gonna know
every
everything.
second.
Yeah.
They didn't have a log of everything that happened second by second.
Yeah.
So you have to take some liberties, just like any other film. But
how many?
There are a lot of accurate things.
Yeah,
in there.
the event. And that's another basic rule with filmmaking. There's really, when you see stuff that's based on a true story, it doesn't necessarily mean every single second you're watching is a true story. Even some of the stuff we talked about, like on the on American Crime Story, with everything with OJ. There's a lot of stuff that's in there that's factual, but there's a lot of drama that is added in
and
just to make it more entertaining.
A lot of it's biased.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest things I wanted to stay away from.
I can't think of one O.J. Simpson, either made for TV docu or Netflix docu or anything, that there hasn't been like, okay, they're trying to lead you one way. I didn't see all of the People versus O.J. Did you?
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Was it pointed one way, or was it kind of down the middle?
It wasn't.
I thought it was. I think they did a good job of balancing it. But
I think they did a good job of showing you both sides.
Yeah, but it swayed. The reason why it was different, I thought, is because it at least the way I interpreted it, is they swayed a lot towards that he did do it.
Yeah,
that's just how I watched it.
When
yeah,
he also wrote a book titled
If I Did It.
If I Did It, but I Did It was a different color.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you're not helping yourself there.
Yeah, so that is still an interesting conversation. Like, did he do it or not? There was this. I can't remember, but there was a famous crime author that was in that court trial that wanted to write a book about the OJ trial, and he saw all the evidence, and according to him, he's saying that the evidence it was clear as day that he did do it, but that the prosecution just kind of dropped the ball on it. So this is a case that we can spend 3 hours, a whole day on talking about, but it was just interesting how you're right about it being like the media being biased, or an article being biased, or an author being biased. With this particular movie, I didn't want any of that. I wanted to, like, hey, this happened. You're like a fly in the wall to witness it, and it's just kind of laid out there for you, and then you can just kind of like interpret it yourself. And
I feel like I don't know if it's the advent of social media or Netflix or just the amount of content, but I think most people are aware of the biasness now more than they ever have been. So when you do something and you stay as close as you can to the middle, I think you endear yourself to him, and I think people have a more enjoyable time. I don't know. That's my take.
Yeah, again, it's another interesting point because, like, you talk to some people and their opinion is that, they need resolution. So sometimes the bias stuff works because people need that bow on the top at the end, and it's like, okay, it's over. And I don't know, it's even on shows that are all just that are not based on true crimes. Like, you look at, one of the famous ones was The Sopranos. When The Sopranos ended, you either loved it or you hated it.
Yeah.
And the reason why people still talk about Sopranos is because the way it ended. But then you look at a show like Breaking Bad, like,
that's a
clear-cut ending, and there was so much conversation, people saying that, oh, they did it right, not like The Sopranos. I'm like, good Lord, The Sopranos was like ended so many years ago. You guys are still upset
talking
about it.
Are you coming back? Are you not coming back? What are you doing?
But in Breaking Bad, like, it was definite.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, to me, my
Sometimes
thing
that's
is,
good.
I think that most people need that when they watch a
A lot
movie.
of people want answers.
They need it. So with this particular movie, I was like, well, let's just, if I have my own opinions, let's just try to stay away from it, and let's just present the movie for what it is, and let just people just talk about it, and then they can do their own research. I mean, you can spend 5 minutes on your phone and look it up and read stuff about it, and the whole thing. I just find it interesting because, again, it is a school shooting that happened in 1979, and in 1979 there was really no protocol for how to handle a school shooting. So it was 20 years before the Columbine shooting. And I think the Columbine shooting changed all the protocols that we have today.
Columbine and Sandy Hook. I mean, those
Sandy Hook, yeah, but in
those are
Columbine, those kids, they went to that school,
Yeah.
so there was, and also it was covered by the media as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we saw live shots of kids jumping out of windows
Yeah.
and being rescued, and it was just chaotic. So now it's unfortunate. Now you hear about kids going through. When I was a kid, I was go through fire drills. Now there's active shooter drills, for goodness sake, in
Yeah.
schools. So in this particular case with this movie Cleveland, I just kind of, again, that's why, in some of the dialogue, it's just, they just didn't know exactly what to do in this particular case. So I think that if something like that were to happen today, I mean, it would get immediate coverage, obviously on our phones and on cable TV, and immediately the media would start coming up with their own, because everybody's competing to give you the information first, even if it's an
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
So they'll start researching people, and they'll just say this person, is the one who's the active shooter, and this is what they did, and it's like, so it's hard for people sometimes to come up with their own, with their own opinion, because we're just inundated with so much opinions these days.
And
You don't
there's-
even know what to take as fact anymore.
there's no repercussion with Twitter. I mean, there's no, like, you could
No
just
repercussion with
there's
fucking the news
and
stations.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Because you could just tweet something out, and if you're wrong, who cares? Like that. You're not going to go say I'm sorry.
Right.
You're not going to retract your statement. It's out there. Who cares? And that's just translated over to media now. You could literally say close to
Anything
whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Pretty damn close, and get
and,
away
I mean,
with it.
and to your point, we still, to this day, don't know how to handle a school shooter. With the last shooting in Florida, with the sheriff's office not going in, maybe going in, all being told to stand down. I mean,
Yeah, and then you get one story, and then all of a sudden, some video surveillance pops up. Like, well, that doesn't really go with your story.
Yeah, it
so,
doesn't go with the story.
And then there's just so many factors, and I don't know. It's just become such a whirlwind for these tragic events. You know what I mean? And you're right. I mean, they do have protocols in place, but I think it's kind of like this thing: is you keep practicing for a drill, but then when it goes live, it's like, it's
a completely different thing.
It's the real deal. You know what I mean? So
you can practice for stuff, but until you're actually faced with it, you don't necessarily know how to handle it.
I mean, what do you do? Put a fence up around the school? Have TSA at every school? It's that now you're going, well, what are we doing here now?
Yeah.
Schools implemented the whole clear backpack.
Yeah, there's so many different things now, and the cost that that's the burden of the cost that's putting on our tax dollars to try to we keep swaying away from, well, did we forget about, like, we need to educate our kids too, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now we're just spending all this time on, for goodness sake, trying to it's supposed to be the safest one,
Keep
the
'em
safest
alive.
place to be, and then now it's just become a whole terror zone of people wanting to do these crazy crimes. So yeah, I mean, back then in '79, there was no protocol. There was just like, there's somebody shooting at the school, and on top of that, there were three factors. There's one is somebody's firing against. They're firing at elementary school kids. 1, 2, when they find out that it's a 16-year-old, and then 3, they find out that it's a female. So everything was off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, usually, you think about violent crime, it's
Male.
a
Male
white
dominant.
male.
Yeah.
You know what I
White
mean?
male.
For the most part,
Mostly
it's
a white male.
Most of the time, it's a white male. And in this case, it was just, she was a white female, but still a 16-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Like, what possesses a girl to do that, to think
completely
about
different.
it? Yeah. Yeah. So it's just, there were so many different things. So when There was a standoff at the house. They just didn't. I think today they
didn't know what to do.
Yeah, there's protocols where you just rate in, you nip it, and then either the person gets taken down or they get arrested.
Well, because now you have the police SWAT that have the gear, it's more safe for them.
That's it. We've had a lot of advancements since 1979 as well. That's helped that,
advancements,
but a lot of it does come from the experience of more and more of these things happening.
Yeah.
Now, did you for the factual parts of this, did you rely on newspapers or a book or anything?
The majority of, I would say about 75% of the stuff that I looked up was in the parole hearings. So the shooter, Brenda Spencer, she had, believe she's had 4 parole hearings and since then. And you can actually pull those documents online, and I downloaded them, and there was actually a lot more information there than I thought. So there was just from people testifying, and then people testifying about the actual case. There's documents from the police department all stored in there. So there was a lot of information on the stuff that she said, how she acted, and so we went through like hundreds and hundreds of documents and brought it down to a 15-minute story. In that case, so yeah, the factual pieces were all from mainly that. And I know that Rob had told me that he did some research on some crime books that were out there. One in particular that he said that was interesting on her whole demeanor after she was arrested. So some of that was in there where it just seems like she had no empathy, which she didn't. I mean, she didn't have no empathy for what she did, obviously.
When you're shooting across at elementary school,
yeah.
you can't.
Yeah, so it's all that stuff came from that, and then going after draft after draft after draft of the screenplay to finally come up to what we were happy with, and then decide to, okay, we're going to go and cast and shoot this thing.
Did they try for insanity I'm assuming her lawyers?
No. In her particular case, again, this was a very interesting case because they didn't know how to handle it. So she was given what's called an indeterminate sentence, which means that she can be let out anytime.
Wow.
So there's no determine as far as like, okay, you got 5 life sentences. Let's just say somebody gets 4 or 5 life sentences. They're going to spend the rest of their life in prison, right? Or somebody gets 10 years. 10 years with, the possibility of getting out in 5.
After
In her
5,
case,
yeah.
it was indeterminate for 25 years.
An indeterminate amount.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was interesting. So it was very controversial back then because they didn't know how to handle it. And the fact that she was a kid, she was tried as an adult also, so...
here's some bias. She was close enough.
Right, at 16.
She was close enough. She was close.
Now, when you're coming together to develop this, what's the first thing you do? Because obviously you don't just go right into writing. What is it? Is it storyboarding or just brainstorming, or what is your method?
Yeah, brainstorming is a big thing. So what I usually do is we talk. And we talk and talk some more, and then we start taking notes. And then once we get that inspiration to move forward, then we'll start doing research. And then I personally like to go right into a script. I mean, usually a first draft of the script is not all that great, but at least you get your components in there. Some people would write like what's called a treatment, which is just a highlight of a script. But you can have a treatment that's like 200 pages sometimes. So, and then from that,
just write the script.
Yeah, well, sometimes you can't. Like a treatment, you can go and write a whole background story of a character.
Yeah,
and then you're not going to put that into the screenplay.
But it sets the tone for what you're trying to write.
Yeah, so I usually go into it. I mean, I've written treatments too, but in this particular case, since I knew it was going to be a film short, we just got into just getting right into the script and then just bouncing it back and forth. And once that's done, and locking it, then we go in and we start getting a crew together. Like your main set for crew, just start hitting people up, like who's going to shoot it, especially stuff, especially roles on the crew. That's not that I don't want to say for critical roles, because every role is important on the crew, but
not
you know,
in the pre-production process where you're planning stuff.
Right.
I think
So
is what you mean.
well, yeah, exactly. Like one of the first things, that I do is I find a cinematographer. So Ryan and I work great. We worked on so much stuff over so many years.
Shout out El Jefe.
That's old school. That's going way back. So, you find a cinematographer, because usually a cinematographer and a director on a set, they're going to be, tied to the hip together. And then from there, you just start building up. As you get closer to your shoot schedule, you start building up more and more the finishing touches to the rest of your crew. One of the first things I like to do as well during pre-production is I always like to cast, especially the main role, to get an actor or an actress attached to the screenplay off the bat, getting them excited about it. In this particular case for Cleveland, we had 200 people audition for this movie.
Wow.
So we had it was over 100 young girls that auditioned for Brenda, and then there was about 80 people that auditioned for the role of the detective that interrogated her.
Now, do you just send these into agencies and locally? That
sometimes, and again, sometimes, and for this particular movie, I just put an ad out, and social media is your friend. Again, you try to keep your costs down. So I usually do the thing in waves. So if, for example, if I just put stuff out on social media and say, hey, we're casting for this movie, if there's two factors, if we don't get a good amount of people responding, or if people who send in auditions don't fit the part, or I can't find to fill it, then you go to another tier. You go to casting agency or casting agency websites, stuff like that you can do. That was weird.
Because you did an excellent job casting Brenda.
Brenda.
Yeah. I don't know why I said Brianna.
That's all right.
I'm awful with names. Seeing a picture of her in real life, there's a stark resemblance.
There's a resemblance for
she
sure.
She actually, the actress's name is Susanna Mata. I thought she was fantastic. We went the process that we did was we had people. First of all, we had people contact us and saying, "Hey, I'm interested to audition." After you put out the casting information of what it is that we're looking for, as far as like age range, female, male, or whatever,
Sometimes even a specific look.
Yeah.
Depending on what it is.
Yeah, and Brenda she has a unique look. I mean, she's as far as a unique look for a movie, like she was a redhead with a lot of freckles. Yeah. So I knew that it was going to be. I didn't want to put a casting call out and saying, "Hey, we're only looking for a 16-year-old girl with red hair and freckles."
Just put the picture of the Wendy's lady on there. There you go.
Because forget it, because then people are not going to respond. So, or the only people that are respond, you have better odds in just getting it out there.
It takes your window and closes it, 7/8 of the way.
Exactly. So I didn't want to. Here's the deal. Like, I didn't want to. What's the right word? Like,
pigeonhole?
Not pigeonhole, but I didn't want to lose the opportunity in working with somebody that I thought was really good because they didn't have red hair.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So I didn't even put that in the description. I just put a young girl between the ages of 16. I think I put like age 14 all the way to 25, because there's people who are
25
there's girls
that
that look like they're young. So I just left it open there.
So many.
Even ethnicity.
So many.
Even ethnicity. I left it open.
Yeah.
It just didn't matter to me. So once we went through, so what happens is people, they respond to the ad, and we send them what's called a side or sides. And sides are basically is like 2 pages or 3 pages from a full script instead of sending them a whole script. And you give them, a small part of the script, and then they record themselves, or they have somebody recording them doing those lines of that scene, and then they record it and they send it to us, and then we kind of filter through all those. It was a big task. We had a lot of videos that we had submitted. So we go through and we weed out the ones that, that don't fit, that we don't think will fit for the movie. And And then how many did we have? And then we did what was called what's called callbacks.
I think we had it down to like what,
20 or 10.
I think it was like 13 for the Brenda roll, and yeah, maybe like 7
For the
because we did like
detective.
20 callbacks in one day, or
That's
like
right.
17 callbacks
Yeah.
in one day, and it was like 10 and 7 or 13 and 8. I don't know. It was something like that. I mean, we had almost 20, about 20 people on the callbacks for both roles.
Yeah, so
Like
then,
total.
Then it's just basically going, and then you do a live callback where you set up a camera and we're all in the room and the actors will come in
To actually meet them and
we
coach
meet
them.
Yeah, and you could direct them.
See how they
on there.
take direction.
Yeah.
See how they can adapt to what you're looking for. Because a lot of these people, you send them the sides. You can give them a little direction, but a lot of times you just want to see what they give you. What's
Right.
their interpretation of this script and this character? And from there, if you think they did good, whether it's what you're looking for specifically or not, you can still bring them back if they're doing a good job at acting and giving you something decent. To then you can say, okay, well, I'm looking for something more along these lines of tone. Can you do that? And if they can't do it, well then they're probably not going to make it. But you want to find somebody that can listen and you can work with comfortably.
Yeah, because we can all read the same thing right now, and we'll all have a different take
Exactly.
on it.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, most definitely.
And yeah, so you just, like you were saying, you whittle it down, and then we did a callback, and I think it's actually kind of funny because Susanna, she was on the borderline there. Like we put her in the callback, but we were like, oh, she was okay,
Yeah.
but we didn't think it was what we were looking for. But we were like, well, let's have her come anyway because she did a good job, but it wasn't really what we wanted.
Right.
And-
I mean, these people they had no direction, so they
Yeah.
just got an email with the script, so they have to try to portray something. And again, it's not even the full script. They're
Yeah.
just getting 2 or 3
Couple
pages
pages.
of a middle of a scene. They don't know anything. But she had this, I don't know. There was just something about her in the video that she had sent in that I thought was, I don't know. I can't really explain it. It's just a process that I go through. You watch the videos, like I'd like to see more of this person. And I know that I cannot disqualify people because they don't know the screenplay. They don't
Yeah.
know the story. And I also don't want to reveal the information either.
Exactly.
So it's like, okay, well, let's get her in. You know what I mean? So she made the callback. There was like, what you said was 13. I think
Something
we narrowed
like
it down
that.
to 13, 12 or 13. And then it went all the way down to two girls. And then I ultimately decided on Susanna. And again, Susanna is she really is, at the time she was 16. So,
Yeah.
so that helped, but she was a blonde. She's
Short
a
blonde hair.
She's short blonde hair, and the character's got long red hair. And I was like, I'm not going to let, the look, determine what's, that's going to disqualify somebody, because I thought she was, when she did the callback in front of us, I wrote a note over, because Ryan was with me.
Yeah.
And he was next to me, and I just kind of picked up my pen and I wrote a note on the piece of paper to him to read. And I wrote, "This girl is awesome." And
Yeah.
when she did the scene,
She blew us away.
Yeah,
When even just her first sit down audition in front of us, we were both like, all right, I mean, we walked out of there going, she's probably going to get the part, but we're going to relook at everything, make
Yeah.
sure it's what we want, make sure somebody else, we're not missing something. I mean, we were pretty confident when we walked out of there that she was in the top 3 at least.
yeah, yeah. And then it eventually got narrowed down to 2.
Yeah.
And then it's
Yeah.
just a matter. It's like a lottery. No, not a lottery. My bad. It's just a matter of process of elimination.
Yeah, you just kind of whittle
know?
it down.
Pros and
You-
cons.
I mean,
Yeah.
you really just you
Yeah.
watch the auditions over and over. You again that now we had over 100. Now we have 13. So now we go, okay, who's the best? And then you kind of go, okay, we like these 7. So now you're down to 7. You just kind of keep working your way down of what are we looking for, who took good direction, who fits the part the best, who delivered the lines, the most like we want it. I mean, there's all these different factors.
Yeah.
And some of it's really just like, well, she feels better than this one. It's you just kind of got to take it as
Yeah.
it comes.
It's a tough process because for me, I always root for actors. I mean, actors have
course.
it tough in having to go into a room with a bunch of strangers just
Yeah.
staring at you, or you do this and then you're hoping to get a part. And it's unfortunate. I mean, you can only cast one for the part. You know what I mean? So I I was very happy with her performance. The same with Essex, who played the his name is Essex O'Brien, was the
Detective.
He played the detective, and that, I mean, he had a very strong video submission. And then when he just came in, he did such a good job. And then that was narrowed down to, I think, 2 or 3 people as well. But then I just kept leaning towards him, and it just worked out. I thought it worked out fantastic. I was very happy with it. I mean, that's why I couldn't explain it earlier. I mean, it's really this. You almost know, who do you think is gonna work best for the part for the movie?
As the person just watching, there's, I'm gonna make up half these words, but the isolation shots where it's just her, there's eye movement and facial expressions and quirks that are just, you could tell are unique.
Yeah,
and it fits. It fits.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about, like, here's the deal. Like, every director works different. They have a different process. I mean, as far as for me, I always like to make sure that an actor feels that they can just give it their all. I don't like to tell people exactly how does a character portray to do everything. I want them to lay out most of their opinion on that. Unless there's something very specific that the character does, or that the character has to do, then that's something different. But for the majority of the time, it's always like, what do you think how the character should be? And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, then I'll say something, and then we'll change it up a bit. Because I mean, it's such a fine line with actors where, you don't want to throw anybody off. They're already under a lot of pressure already. You got a lot of people around. You got a lot of gear around. You got a lot of lights on you. I don't want to go on in there and saying, and make somebody feel like, oh, well, you're not doing it right. And then all of a sudden, everything that they're going to do moving forward, they're going to, they could be self-conscious about it. So I was trying to be very open with these roles. And I just think they both did fantastic.
Because I think to play off that, directing is its own art form. And like you said, not being able to give them direction and try to get something different out of them that doesn't completely throw them off their game,
That's
yeah,
exactly
being open to their own interpretation of your direction, right?
Of course.
Exactly, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, if there's a certain way, I mean, if you're going to be a pain in the ass, a director, then now we start thinking, well, then, if I was an actor, I'd be like, well, listen, wouldn't you put this wig on and wouldn't you fucking do the role then? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So I always think about that because I know that it's hard to communicate a vision to so many different people and also at a very limited time. I mean, there's so many moving parts to directing. I mean, you got a team of people that need direction also, as far as like, and then you got the rest of your team, that nothing's going to move unless, you're going to say we're going to move forward with it, whether it's doing takes, whether how shots look, how the camera's going to move. All that stuff is pre-planned, but when you're on set, it's like there's so many factors going on that you're under so much pressure that the last thing you want to do is throw one thing off, it can completely screw everything up. You know what I mean? So I try to take it, as best as I can to try to get everything to go smooth. And at the end of the day, it's like to be happy with the footage that you got once you finish it. I mean, is it, faithful to what you wrote and how you wanted it to be,
So what is what is your goal for the movie? What is your goal outcome?
Well, the goal was to make a compelling and strong story. I think that the character of Brenda drives this story. And at the end of the day, it is going to be part of an anthology of true crime that we want to get distributed, which we already have a distributor that's interested in the project, but we have to finish the entire feature.
Need 4 more shorts.
Yeah.
At
least 4.
At
I mean,
least.
Depending on the length, it could be 5 or 6.
Could be total 5, 6, 7 movies.
Yeah, it just depends on how long they are. Like Cleveland was supposed, when you look at the script, it was 10 minutes. And then it's, again, what Ryan was saying earlier about kind of drawing out reactions and stuff like that, because it's a character-driven story. So, you want coverage of people responding with facial expressions and how they're taking the information in, because it is a drama.
See their emotions.
Yeah, exactly. So it turned into a 15-minute movie, and then the next one could be 10 minutes long. So the goal at the end of the day is to have a compelling true crime slate of movies that people might know the story or they might not. You know what I mean? And as far as with this one, I know that there isn't a lot of people that know about it. They don't. I would bet that maybe 1 person out of 10 people would know it off the bat.
Yeah, I had no idea.
I didn't know about it until you had told me.
Yeah, and then you immediately just look it up. You just Google it, and then boom, all the information.
All the information
is there.
right there. You just didn't know anything about it.
Yeah. So and again, in the next shorts that we're gonna do, again, we're just trying to come up with stuff that's different. Again, like in one of the shorts, we're planning on doing it from the perspective of the victim, as opposed to it being just about the person who committed the crime. So we're just gonna try different stuff, and again, I did wanted to make it. I wanted to make it a narrative and not a documentary. That was another conversation that I had with Rob in the beginning. So are we gonna do a documentary style, or are we going to do there's also a what's called a docudrama where you do narrative mixed in with documentary, and I was like, we want to make this a narrative. So and then also the narrative also gives you some freedom as far as like, well, that didn't really happen exactly, but you can kind of put it in there because again, leeway. it's gonna help drive the story. It's just what you got to do. I mean, it's the same with books that are adapted into screenplays. I mean, people say it all the time. Well, the movie's not as good as the book. You got to take a 400-page book and condense it into a 2-hour movie.
Yeah. You got to take what would be 2 or 3 movies and put it into one.
And put it into one script. So, and then a lot of times they'll add stuff in.
Yeah.
That wasn't in the book, or that didn't really happen, stuff like that. Because again, it's just a formula where it's like, well, is this gonna entertain people or keep them engaged?
Something that'll entertain you for reading a book isn't necessarily going to translate to the screen. You have to do things in a different way. You have to maybe add scenes or extend scenes, change things, add things to make it more engaging when you're sitting there for 2 hours watching a movie rather than reading a book over, a couple weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the biggest ones that I remember is one of the biggest ones for me was I don't know if you guys ever seen the movie The King of Scotland.
Yeah.
With Forrest
Whitaker.
Forrest Whitaker.
Yep.
Yeah. There was the entire movie was about the doctor that was helping, right? That was helping his people, and then it shows like it's just like this arc of showing this nice guy, the King of Scotland became how evil he was throughout the progression of the story. Well, I found out that doctor that the movie was about, he didn't even exist.
Wow.
It was not, he was that person. They just created that character.
Story
it's still based on a true story.
Yeah.
But they created because they needed that component to kind of like he represented everything that, like, if you would read a history book about this guy, they needed something to drive, like, what's going to cause those conclusions of this guy. Why was he evil? Why did he do what he did? And then how do you engage people? So you do it in creating a character, and then that character builds a relationship with them. So it's I just find it fascinating, and there's a ton of movies that are like that. You can look them up. Look up their trivia, and they're like, this person didn't exist. That's why you find those disclaimers in movies. It's like it's based on a true story, but some stuff had to be changed in order to make it.
Yeah, it's the keyword based.
Based.
Exactly.
It's not a full
inspired
true
by
story.
a true story.
Inspired by,
It's the same thing. Like it's based on a real event, and then it's just you have to sprinkle in some elements in order to make your audience more engaged.
It's that person's take on it, and also making it entertaining.
Well, it kind of goes back to like the book, like you said.
Yeah.
There's things in a book that you read that you love that you're going to hate on a big screen,
or sometimes there's no time.
Like a lengthy like a lengthy dialogue in a book. You read a page or two dialogue, it's no big deal. You put that up on the big screen, that's probably 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah, it could be.
Of dialogue.
Whole scene.
You're not going to watch
Big-ass
that.
scene.
Yeah,
you're not going to watch
it could be.
two jabrones talking for 4 minutes.
You might.
I mean,
Depends on the movie.
just, again,
if it's up there and you paid for it, obviously you're going to watch it.
Some people walk out.
It just depends on the movie.
But are you going to like
Yeah.
that scene?
Yeah.
Probably not.
again, it's just it depends on people's taste. So there's so many moving parts to this stuff with movie making that stuff changes all the time. I mean, stuff's going to change in your screenplay while you're writing the screenplay. Stuff's going to change when you go to shoot the thing. Your screenplay stuff's going to change.
So what is a screenplay?
A screenplay?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
The screenplay is the actual script. That's just the name.
Script.
Oh,
It's
okay.
the
Okay.
writing of the story. Yeah.
Yeah, they call it a screenplay.
The script.
It's a script, right?
It's a fancy term for a script. Like
Screenplay.
okay.
It's the screenplay. Yeah, they'll ask like
That's more of the official term.
Yeah.
Okay.
Script
Yes.
is more of the
idiot.
the slang term for screenplay. It's a script.
I never knew that. Idiot.
I'm an idiot.
so your script your screenplay will change during production. There could be many factors.
Well, you might be
As to
not
why.
able to accomplish a certain thing,
Yeah.
or you might have to do it a certain way or portray it a certain way to achieve the outcome that you're looking for.
Right. So
Yeah, I mean,
You know,
if
you write things how you can think of them, but you can't always, especially with indie movies, you can't always accomplish them.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the fucking Avengers where we can just green screen every aspect of it and build this whole 3D world. Well, we don't have $6 million to give to a graphics company to do that,
Yeah, and I mean, if you ask actors, like when I hear actors on podcasts and things like that, they always say if you're not writing all over a script and trying to make changes to tweak it to where you would be able to deliver that role, you're not doing yourself a
Same
service.
thing with dialogue.
So, like you said, like the
dialogue's a big
script is
one.
constantly going to change.
Unless there's certain lines that have to be said,
Of course.
or certain things have to be said a certain way. Other than that, like a lot of the movies you watch, it's not what it started out as.
yeah, sometimes actors will say something else and
it works better.
Or like me, for example, with Cleveland, we had to change some stuff because some of the dialogue just wasn't working.
Well, one of the most classic ones I think is
Sorry, guys, hold on.
No, you're
Like
good.
this?
Yeah.
yeah, just bring that mic to you.
Bring it right to that mouth.
One of the most one of the most classic ones was Steve Carell in 40 Year Virgin when he screams Kelly Clarkson. How synonymous that was. When you think of that, when someone screams Kelly Clarkson out in public, 40 Year Virgin. And I guarantee that was not written in the script.
Oh, there's a lot of stuff where people improvise.
There's some movies that are almost 100% improvised.
Yeah.
You get that more with a lot of comedies when you've got 5, 6, 7 comedians all just gelling off of each other. You tend to get these moments where it's like just do a scene and see what happens.
Roll.
It's amazing if you let people, especially actors, just kind of let them go. I know when one of the tactics I do is like I don't yell cut right away. And a lot of some of the best stuff I've seen is after an actor finishes their line and they just sit there. And we get some really good reactions from them.
Cool reactions,
and they're trained to hear like cut, and then they can now I can. Some of them stay in character, but sometimes
A lot of them don't.
I
Might
can,
be a little more
I can
authentic,
take the break, but sometimes I'll let the camera roll.
Yeah, just
Sometimes
let it
for like
go.
60,
See what they
60
do.
seconds. And especially with Cleveland, like when we started, like, let's just see what happened. Like, let's just keep watching. And a lot of the better stuff that we saw when we were in post-production for this thing was, holy shit, let's let this keep going a little
Extend
longer.
the shot a little more because her reactions are good,
or his reactions were
or
really
his
good.
reactions. Yeah.
Well, it goes back to your credit to you for being like you said, being open to allow them to have a little freedom or have a little of self creativity.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
In the way they think that the character should be portrayed.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just another thing. I mean, just like with directors and producers, everybody has a different process. I know actors have different actors have a different process. Some, I mean, they just, if they don't hear cut and it's awkward, like they'll break character. Like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Other
But
people will just sit there and
other
stay
people
in
just sit
character
there. You
for
can
a
stay
few
there
minutes.
forever. Let's just see how long they
Or you
see
can
what
be
they do.
Daniel Day-Lewis and walk around thinking you're a butcher for
Jim
4
Carrey.
months.
Daniel
Yeah,
Day-Lewis.
Jim
Daniel-
Carrey's another one.
Daniel Day-Lewis is a good example.
Yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis is really good because he's a straight method actor. But I finally watched the Jim and Andy documentary
Yeah,
on
that was
Netflix
way
about him doing
overboard.
Man on the Moon. That shit was funny.
Really?
You should watch it. Yeah, it's funny.
It's
but he
interesting,
stayed
he was
in character.
He was Andy Kaufman.
He
throughout
was
that
Andy
movie,
Kaufman.
Yeah.
But
He called his father dad. Like
what's the fucking guy?
I mean, there's a lot of actors that do it that way.
The lead from The Walking Dead. He's
Rick?
Rick. Rick's a stern method actor.
Oh, is he?
He won't even. He'll suppress his English accent, like even
Just
off
on
scene.
set.
Even
yeah,
on- yeah.
He only
Yeah.
speaks in quote unquote American
The Daniel
accent.
Day-Lewis one, like you mentioned, is
He's
interesting.
a
I
big
mean, it's funny listening about it. When Spielberg did Lincoln, I mean, the guy was Lincoln.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Throughout the whole shoot.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy went home Lincoln, but it was
Went
pretty
home
fun.
as
Like the
Lincoln.
guy refused to like use technology.
Yeah.
Like no cell phones were allowed to be around. Like he wanted
crazy.
to be right, but it was funny. I mean, he was made fun of because like to go to the hotel, he had to take a car. It's
Yeah.
like, well, they didn't have a car. Why don't you get on your horse
don't you
and
get
go
on a horse,
home? You know what I
Lincoln?
mean?
I love when I
But-
hear interviews from actors that try to like get him to break character because I
Yeah.
mean he takes it in stride, but
Yeah.
they go out of their way to try. He doesn't.
Yeah, and a lot of times, like it could be good or bad. I mean, it could be a bad experience to some people. But for me, at the end of the day, it's what type of product you're going to come out at the end. So if an actor needs to do that, then let them do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As long
If
as they're
that's how
not
you're gonna
hurting other
get-
people. I mean, there's
Yeah.
some ridiculous stories you hear, like
It's
on
like Jared Leto on Suicide Squad.
that's exactly what I was going to say. The
he
guy
was
was
sending
sending
random like shit to the other actors
Really?
and stuff. Like he was being the Joker. Yeah,
No
being a
way.
douche,
he was
yeah.
sending them packages
Jesus.
of
Dude,
like
he would send like dildos to
dildos
people's
and
trailers.
shit. Yeah.
Well, I mean, when he was Lennon, he gained all that weight. Same
yeah.
thing with Christian
yeah,
Bale.
Chapter 27.
Christian Bale in The
Yeah.
Machinist.
Yeah, that guy
He was like
skinny.
65.
Yeah.
He was eating one can of tuna and
Yep.
water. That was his entire
Yeah.
meal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then 6 months later is
He was Batman.
265 Jack for Batman. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's his name? What was the guy that we just saw the movie The Star Is Born?
Bradley Cooper.
Cooper.
Bradley Cooper's another one. Like when he did American Sniper, he gained a lot of weight for it.
Really?
Yeah, I heard an interview with him on it. So
He wanted to be
he
authentic
yeah.
with the real person.
Yeah, yeah. So he I heard him in an interview. It was interesting on the health wise behind it, how it could hurt your heart and
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah,
that, gaining and
absolutely.
losing the weight.
Yeah.
So yeah, some actors are just and me, like as a filmmaker, like I appreciate that. You know what I mean? I mean, there might be some times where it's just like, all right, dude, it's like enough already. You're
Yeah,
not
chill the-
Lincoln.
chill the fuck
You're not
out.
Lincoln.
Yeah.
But you know what? At the end of the day, if it does,
That's what gives you the product, the outcome.
I mean, you're talking about a Spielberg movie.
Yeah.
That the guy's going to be Lincoln. I'm like, okay, he's
All
Lincoln.
right,
We're at
we
lunch.
got Lincoln.
We're at
Well-
lunch. You know,
well,
he's Lincoln. So
Me, the layperson in movies, like when I hear Bradley Cooper, I always think the Hangover. And then you
Hangover.
watch
Yeah.
A Star Is Born, and you go, okay, this guy wrote it, directed it. You know,
And for that, I had
all
heard
of-
he spent a bunch of time with Eddie Vedder to
For music,
get
yeah.
that rock star type
Yeah.
feel.
it was he might have spent time with Eddie Vedder, but Willie Nelson's son, Lucas Nelson, wrote most of the songs.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Lady Gaga's even on his latest album. She
Okay.
she did some backup
That's
vocals
cool.
for him. Yeah.
That's cool.
You know, to see somebody, you know, that if 3 months ago Bradley Cooper, I immediately think of The Hangover. Now I see from my opinion, a creative masterpiece, and you go, oh shit, this
Yeah,
guy's,
this
guy's a lot bigger than just some jerk
and I
off on a
think-
comedian
And I
a
think
comedy movie.
that's a good conversation. Like I think what actors talk about, or an acting school, or I mean, I've never done any of that, but you know, there's so many different tactics that people could use that if it helps you create a better product, then you know, all power to it.
Yeah, we'll start wrapping it up here
Okay.
a little bit.
So you want to
we're
wrap?
a little over
'cause
an hour.
You're gonna edit this, right?
Not
Like,
much.
but we'll cut out this stuff I'm talking. Okay.
Maybe not.
Oh, maybe not. Okay.
Yeah, we're sloppy
we
here.
don't cut much out.
We're down
right.
for
We don't cut much
silly
out.
goose
Well, I was
time.
going to ask questions like, how do you want to wrap it up? Do you want to talk about the movie again, or
Well,
like,
let's
do
bring
plugs, or
well,
some
for
shit
sure,
like
yeah.
that?
So
Let's
you
make
got
sure we
the-
plug you. Let's make sure we give the info for the premiere, so anybody that's local might want to go. Unfortunately, I'll be out of town for it, but
Yeah, that sucks.
So you got
you
the
know.
film festival coming up.
Yep. Yeah. So Cleveland's having its world premiere at the Tampa Bay Underground Film Festival on December 8th at 6 p.m.
Yes.
And that's in Britton Plaza in South Tampa. You can buy
Classic-
tickets. You can buy
classic
tickets
venue.
at tbuff.org, and you can visit our production company, Studio House Pictures, at studiohousepictures.com. You can read synopsises on there. You can watch trailers, watch some of the commercial work we've done.
hit up that Instagram.
Yep, and Instagram
Studio
we're
House
at
Pictures.
at Studio House Pictures, and Facebook is
Everything
at
but
Studio House
Twitch.
Pictures. Everything but Twitch.
Now you're obviously in the planning stages for the next one, I would assume.
Yeah,
There's already another script.
the scripts. We have two scripts already. The main the main hurdle is funding. So it's just, you know, this is a matter of like, do I want to dish out, you know, another credit card again and start?
Do we want to find somebody to throw some coin?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
So what is
Because you can't find somebody to give you money, but you got to
Yeah.
convince them that it's worth giving you money.
I'm trying to figure out how to pose the question. Is the goal? Because this is the goal just to break even? I mean,
breaking even would be fantastic.
Let's start there. Yes, that'd be good.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
because I always see like movies like they made 800 million, but it was a box office disaster. Like that wasn't enough money.
Yeah.
So you know, I guess the goal would be just to break even. You know, with the distribution
again,
deal,
I mean,
or
this could be another hour conversation. I mean, the there's a business part of it, and then there's a creative part of it, right? So on the business part of it, just like the majority of movies, even ones that quote unquote bombed, they made money.
They still
Yeah.
make money.
Yeah, they still make
That's
money.
why I
They
was
just
having-
didn't
Yeah.
do as good as they
That's what I
wanted
was
them to
having-
do in the box
they're
office.
making money.
that's why I was having an issue posing the question because it's a personal venture for you. You know, this is a creative
well,
venture.
I mean, here's the deal.
You know?
Like, there is a business aspect for it. So, yes, I mean, right now, like I'll spend the money on making the movies, but the main objective is not like, okay, well, let's make a profit off of
Yeah.
it, right? But you know, getting a distribution deal or even self-distribution is a huge thing right now. You just want to get your work out there to get the potential of
More
just
opportunities.
out there.
Maybe somebody sees this film and then says, "Hey, I'll give you funding for the rest of it."
yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
"Hey, I've got this project I need somebody for." You know, you never know.
Especially with indie film. I mean, I can tell you right now, people are not in indie film to make money. I mean, some are. I mean,
passion.
there's some people that do make.
Sharknado.
They'll make movies like that,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
they make money. You know what I mean? But the majority of it, the time is at an indie level. It's just you just want to get creative and get it out there, and trying to get as much people to watch it as possible.
But to your credit, this is I don't think there's ever been a better time to create your own content or create content.
Yeah,
there's
you're
never been
absolutely right.
so many avenues.
There's so many avenues
you know?
to put it out now.
yeah,
You know, it's crazy.
Yeah, so right now we're contemplating on like what are we going to do? It's like once this thing finishes, do we go with the distributor, which is a middleman, with the potential of them having more connections than what we can do at a self-distribution level? I mean, because anybody can self-distribute on Amazon as long as you ain't distributing porn
You can put it
or
on
stuff
Amazon.
that would get technically like an X rating if something is uberly violent. You can put anything on Amazon and then get paid for it. I mean, you have to get a shitload of views
Yeah,
to
it's
make money.
peanuts, but
But you know, there's people out there that do a good job at self-marketing, and
You catch fire, you catch fire. There's
That's it.
you
You
don't
get a lot
you
of
clicks.
You don't
Yeah.
need a reason.
No,
yeah,
I don't need to know why.
Yeah,
I mean, when I saw her numbers like go up by 5 times, not once did I go, well, why the hell that happened? It just happened.
it just happens. Yeah, there's
There's
a
no
trend
reason
goes
for it.
on, or yeah.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
listen to me, but I mean, that's just me.
let's not push them all away.
But no, I would love to talk further. I would love to have you back on.
All right, well, shall we wrap it? All right, everybody go to the T-Buff Film Festival, September 8th,
Yeah.
6 p.m.
tbuff.org. It actually runs Thursday through Sunday. Next Thursday through Sunday, you can watch 235 movies
If you really want to.
if you really want to. So
Yes.
they got awards. Yeah, we got nominated
Yes.
for Best World Premiere. So we'll see. You know, I'm just happy that they're gonna be hosting it, and I think we're gonna have a good turnout.
That's it. All right.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Bye. Yeah, man, for sure. Anytime.